Or you ready, Brad?
Yep.
All right, folks, welcome. Welcome to the February 11th, 2026 all-large meeting in the public meeting room at 2 George Street. My name is Trey Watkins, and I'll be serving as the chairman this afternoon. The other board members present this afternoon are Luda Sopchuk, James Metters, Seton Brown, and Joel Trantham. City staff present are B.D. Wortham Galvin, our city architect, Lawrence Courtney, our staff architect, and Brad Thomas, the staff architectural planner. Applicants have been required to submit any documents in advance of the meeting. Staff will control the slide presentation. That includes everything submitted by the applicant by the deadline in accordance with submittal requirements. Our clicker has been working well, so you can take your hand at trying at that as well. Applicants simply need to ask staff if they need them to advance to the next slide during the presentation. Applicant staff and board members are required to give their name when speaking. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed to the City of Charleston's public meeting channel on YouTube, and your appearance here is your consent to be recorded. The order of the meetings will be as follows. First, we'll have an introduction and overview of the project by city staff and the board for the public. The next section is the applicant's presentation. This is a 10-minute time limit, or as determined by the chair, and with any questions of the applicant by board and staff. Any and all presenters should clearly state their name for the record. Persons affiliated with the project, whether that's owners, developers, designers, consultants, etc., should speak during this portion and not during public comment. The next section is public comment. All applications are part of a public meeting. Written public comments were due by noon the day prior to this meeting, and any received comments have been transmitted to and considered by the board. Written comments will not be read aloud during the meeting unless requested by a member of the board and with permission of the chair. Any of the member of the public who wishes to be heard in person on an agenda item at this time is requested to state their name and address for the record, and to be reminded there is a 2-minute time limit for these remarks unless extended by the chair. The applicant does not need to respond to comments made during the public comment portion. That section will be followed by our city staff comments and recommendations. Then the applicant response or clarification to the public comments, or the city staff comments and recommendations. The response time limit for the applicant is 5 minutes, and the applicant does not have to use their applicant response period if they do not feel it is necessary. Then we will have our board discussion and vote. At this point, the applicant presentation is over and public comment is closed. The applicants may clarify inaccurate information when recognized by the chair by raising a hand and waiting to be called upon. Board members will be polled by the chairperson for comments and for their vote on a motion. The chair shall reread a motion verbatim, and the board member making the motion should correct the chair if he has not reread the motion accurately. Once the motion is in proper order and seconded, each member, when voting, should respond yay in favor or nay not in favor. The results will then be posted on the city website at www.charleston-sc.gov/BAR. Tonight, we've had one item that has been withdrawn or deferred. It's item number 3 for 115 Calhoun Street. That was withdrawn by the applicant. We've had public comments submitted for 115 Calhoun Street, and that has also been withdrawn. As a reminder, please turn off all cell phones and potentially disruptive devices. Please limit your comments to architecture only. So comments related to zoning, such as parking, traffic, lot coverage, as well as livability department concerns, are not in purview of this board and cannot be voiced here. With that, the minutes of the last meeting have been circulated. Does anybody want any changes? Otherwise, I'll be glad to have a motion.
Move for approval.
All right. Mr. Mayor's move for approval. Is there a second by Mr. Brown? Mr. Trantham, how do you vote?
Yay in favor.
Mr. Brown?
Yay in favor.
Mr. Metters?
Yay in favor.
And Ms. Sopchuk? And I'm also yay in favor. The minutes are approved. That'll take us to the applications. The first application is 320 UG Street.
320 Hugie Street is new construction in the historic corridor district, and they are requesting approval of a mock-up pamphlet. Lawrence is gonna show us the location of the project. Then we can move to the applicant presentation.
Good evening. Thank you all for coming out tonight, and thank you for all the time that you spent going forward. My name is Alex Mazingo with Greenberg Farrell Architects on Meeting Street. We have the pump station here on Hugie Street, the latest pump station pumping water out, flood waters out during the heavy rainstorms. And we are looking for approval of the mock-up panel that we have. We do have a couple differentiations. Lawrence, if you can go to the next page, please. We have the fence panel. We enlarged the fence panel, and that's on that top left corner of that page. And part of the reason we enlarged it in the mock-up compared to what's on the drawing size-wise is we were originally told the black vinyl fencing that was in the submittal was not available. So we presented a section of the black vinyl fencing as previously approved and galvanized that was available. It has changed several times in the last 24 hours as to what is available and what is not, but we have confirmed as of this afternoon that the black vinyl is available. So we will go back with that, and we will actually change that mock-up to full black vinyl. There were questions brought up about the chamfers under the posts. It's just due to the size of the mock-up and the spacing between the panels, the steel and the concrete foundation, that the angle's off just a little bit. Other things to note is we are asking for a change from a modular brick that was previously approved to a queen size brick due to availability reasons. Our mock-up is with mods, and they did not have any solids available at the time we did the mock-up, and we're hoping for additional orders to make a run of solids. At this point in time, they have yet to get any orders for solids, and they don't have enough even regular modular brick on the lot, in the ground, or ordered to complete the project. But they have plenty of queen size brick, which would be a little bit more appropriate for a commercial project, in our view. That's glad to take any questions that you have.
All right, any questions from the board?
I have a couple.
Sure, Mr. Matters.
You'll have solids.
Yes, sir.
Colors gonna be the same.
Yes, sir.
Does mock-ups are tough, right? Because sometimes you don't really have what you're really gonna build finally. You don't have the ability to build something like that. And I know that, but are there other details that are in the mock-up drawings that are not consistent with what I see?
The only one that I can think of off the top of my head is at on the mock-up itself, on the base of the wood panels and the steel panels, they're actually bolted into the bottom. They'll actually be held on by angles. That's due to the size of the project.
So
you won't have the visible bolt holes that are at the bottom of those panels won't be visible.
and if I think it's drawing C-100. I'm thinking about a clip that I saw.
There's 2 pages marked A-100, and then there's an E14.
Last time I didn't have my glasses today, I forgot my laptop. It almost looked like there was a clip used in lieu of a.
Yeah, instead of the bolts, I think you're looking at E14, I think is actually the one.
E14 is right. I'm sorry, E14. That's exactly right. And it's in matching details with the fasteners.
Yes.
Which one is it?
It's gonna be this detail here that is from the direction plans.
And the roof. Lawrence and I were talking earlier about, is there a roof that you're matching at the Instam homes with what we see up there?
The most recent metal roofs that are there around the garden area.
But no, those aren't, those are different. So what you put up and what's on that timber frame building
Mhm.
is not, it's not the same. And, that middle seam that you have in that picture, it's not turned down at all. It just laps over and it hasn't been turned into itself. And on the edge, it's just got some screws that hold that down rather than being locked onto any type of drip edge or anything like that. But the roof that's on that timber frame building and the roof that you have in the mock-up are not the same.
They're not the same material, no, sir, but it's the same color.
Is it just for color?
Yeah.
It's just for color in terms of.
I thought the color was good. So you're gonna complete the detailing on the installation?
We can.
I think that it should be. Okay, because it's not, it's just goes over the
We
thing.
can wait till the discussion portion for you to make those proposals.
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? All right, thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Any public comment? All right, great. City staff comments and recommendations, please.
This project previously received final review by the board on September 14, 2022, and was previously addressed as 900 King in case anybody at home is wanting to find it. And final review by staff of the permit drawing set on April 9th, 2024. The next bullet is what we've kind of already seen through some of the Q&A, which is anything that appeared on the mock-up, but that would be different on the building because mock-ups or peculiar things have been outlined in red and noted by the applicant. I'm gonna mention some of the things that came up in the final review just because there's been such a long gap between then and now. Board discussion regarding whether the, it should say brick color, should match instant homes was open-ended. The final review applicant discussed color with staff, and an approach for the brick to be monochrome with the core 10 was decided in fall of 2025. The final review applicant selected the brick from US Brick and with the mock-up applicant. The mock-up applicant was unable to obtain solid Madrid brick from US Brick for the mock-up, and the modular brick as shown in drawings is no longer available, but Queen is. Staff are comfortable with the switch from modular to Queen. The brick is perhaps redder than a true monochrome match, but we're fine with that, and it's required that any exposed brick be solid. Applicant chose two versions of the perimeter fencing as noted, so I'm not going to run through the rest, except that our preference was for the black perimeter, and now that is available, so we're all good with that. The exposed concrete is shown as a brushed finish. While the board posed the question of it having color, it was neither conditioned nor definitively stated at the final review by the board or as a comment by staff in the permit. The Core 10 HSS members on the EPA panels, which were just discussed, are not going to have the holes, even though they do have the boat holes for the mock-up. They will be affixed, through a continuous angle on the inside face. And staff requires a field inspection of an early sample just to confirm workmanship on that detail. The non-shrink grout pads, as also mentioned, under the base plates are not the correct slope due to the minimal edge distance at the mock-up. And it's required that the proper slope of the grout pads be used in final construction. The metal guardrail has a nice appearance, and one of the things we discussed with the applicants on site was that we weren't sure if they were going to be exposed or not. If the bolts at the base of the guardrail are visible from the public right of way, we'd like a cleaner solution, but we're happy to work with them, whether that's clipping them, acorn nuts, whatever ends up working best for applicant and staff to agree to. The standing seam roof is a lighter gray than shown in the render, but the intent by the applicant was to match the pergola in the garden in terms of the color as mentioned at Instant Homes. And staff has confirmed that it does, and we have no comments on, no comments on roof color were made at the board final review either way. While workmanship appears generally acceptable, it's difficult to tell what it might be like with some conditions not aligning with what's anticipated on the structure. So staff would like to require field inspections early in construction to confirm the conditions not available on the mock-up. And it's also understood, just because it was in the mock-up drawings, that the stairs shown on E14 were just for reference purposes only, and that we never intended anyone to build those stairs. Staff conditions, exposed brick is required to be solid. Use of an angle to span inside face of core 10 HSS members is required. Proper slope of grout pads is required. Restudy of finish condition on bolts at base of guardrails required if they are visible to the public right of way when installed. And early field inspections by staff to confirm workmanship on elements not shown on the mock-up with a recommendation for approval with board and staff comments and conditions.
Great, thank you so much. For the applicant, do you have any response to any of the board comments and recommendations?
No.
Great, thank you so much. All right, we'll move into board discussion.
I guess I don't have much to add. I think all the discussion that I had on site has been noted in staff's comments and conditions. I agree with every single one of them that are there and any additional conditions that the board may have.
All right, thank you, Mr. Trantham. Anybody else have anything else?
Mr. Chairman, make a motion for approval of the mock-up panel incorporating board staff comments
And conditions.
and conditions.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, so the motion is approval of the mock-up panel with board and staff comments and conditions. Mr. Trantham, how do you vote?
Yay in favor?
Mr. Brown?
Yay in favor.
Mr. Metters?
Yeah, you can.
I'm also yay in favor. The motion passes. Thank you. And for the record, Ms. Subchuck did recuse herself from item number 1. She is now back for item number 2.
Item 2, 25 Courtney Drive originally is an address because this is a long piece that would cross many different addresses. It's new construction in Old City District, but also the newly formed Peninsula Medical University District Overlay Zone. We can get a better acronym for that, say it quicker. And they're requesting conceptual approval of a sky bridge spanning 4 MUSC buildings. Lawrence is going to show us the location of the area that the sky bridge, elevated walkway, pedestrian connector, have lots of phrases floating out there for it. And we'll be ready, Mr. White, for your applicant presentation.
Great, thank you. And I'm going to try to keep this to 10 minutes. I see no reason that this needs to be as long as the bridge must be itself. Jay White, Leolio Architecture. I'm joined here with colleagues from Leolio and from staff out of Atlanta, and of course the estimable Wade Gap, USC. So this project is a long time in the making by USC. It is finally funded. It was funded directly through an appropriation in the state budget last year. While it's a piece of architecture, this is a resiliency project for USC. And I'm going to move quickly through this. Y'all familiar with the site, going back to the clock far enough, and this is Ashley River, not dry land. Thus the conundrum they find themselves in. Flooding maps are included in the application. This bridge connects really 4 buildings on campus. Ashley River Tower, it crosses Courtney Drive, which is an SCDOT right of way, runs along the length of Dowdy Street, connecting to the Thurman Gaines Research Building, the Psych Institute, and then it jogs over and crosses President Street, another state right of way, and connects into the Bioengineering Building. It's almost 1,000 feet. It's the longest thing you're ever going to look at. But it is one of a network of bridges that you don't even really notice on the campus. They're all over, especially in this older portion of campus. Once this is done, you'll be able to go from Ashley River Tower in sort of a clockwise fashion all the way around through all the rest of the campus and end up on Calhoun Street. But this is probably the most architecturally deliberate expression of any of the bridges that are intended to elevate pedestrian traffic, not only for clinicians, but for students and patients as they navigate the campus during high water events. Of course, a portion of the street now in Dowdy has been converted to the greenway. You'll see that in renderings here pretty quickly. We did include some precedents here to show how other healthcare organizations have handled this. One thing that I'll note, and you'll see this when we look at this thing in building section, is that this also provides an infrastructure pathway for the university for pneumatic tube systems, HVAC, high pressure steam lines, that if they were to go underground would have to be pile supported. But instead they will be supported on the pile supported pedestrian bridge, which explains the height of its section. I'll get into that more. Site design, I've already gone through this. This is existing condition. The condition as it will develop. The bridge effectively straddles the property line along its whole length of Downey. And while each one of these 4 buildings actually has a distinct second floor elevation above sea level, the bridge visually will be flat, will be level along its entire length, with slight ramping internal to that to mitigate the differences in floor height. Ground floor plane, second floor, and roof plans. And then this is the elevation. Streetscapes, that's important. And this is important too. This is what it looks like when it connects to Ashley River Tower. For this section of the bridge, we are actually effectively adding on to art, and then the bridge starts here. And in order to accomplish that, we're actually going to peel a section, the lowermost section of that huge arcing curtain wall off of Ashley River Tower, and then engage this with it. There's some diagrams to follow. These sections are helpful in explaining what I was earlier. The bottom of the bridge is about 18 feet above the ground, and that varies, of course, with topography. And then the enclosed volume is about 25 feet tall. That's also because of a very tall parapet to disguise all of that rooftop infrastructure. This is actually the shorter version of this project. It was an earlier, more expensive one that actually had 2 levels in it. But this is the pedestrian zone, and this floor will slope. The basic material palette is largely curtain wall with aluminum louvers to mitigate the sun, with glass fiber reinforced concrete trim at top and bottom, of course, cast in place concrete columns that's supported above the street. Here's the diagram I was looking for earlier. You can see in the pink, the elements of Ashley River Tower that are actually being removed in order to facilitate this. And if you look in this rendering, you can see that there's some rather sculptural cast in place concrete columns that are asymmetrical, and that's because the pile caps that support Ashley River Tower spread out beyond the building's footprint, and we can't build on top of those. There's a basic material palette I mentioned to you earlier. We're keying this in with some of the more recent work on MUSC's campus, really starting with the aesthetic of Ashley River Tower. And then you've seen that again with College of Health Professions and then the College of Medicine we brought a couple years ago, of metal panel, aluminum curtain wall, wood tone effects. We're trying to keep the ground plane very warm. I would say that the overall height of this seems rather exaggerated, but it's not that far out of scale with some of the taller buildings that line King Street and sort of frame that pedestrian experience. Here it is standing in the middle of the street looking back down Dowdy Greenway. This is where it jogs across President Street to connect up to the Psych Institute. It touches down on occasion. You can only go so far down this thing before you have to have a means of egress. So there'll be several of those. This is one, stair and elevator. There's another one about mid-block. The length of this building has been discussed, and while it is a very long building, we have deliberately not tried to use architectural trickery to disguise that. It is important to note that what you'll experience as a pedestrian is this, not that. We think that's important. Feel this from us. There's another view down Dowdy looking east. These portals express the touch points where the buildings engage with the bridge. And then this is back again, Courtney looking back at Ashley River Tower. This is looking north on President. The good thing about this is that we are able to obscure the view of some of the more unfortunate buildings on MUSC's campus. And then this is the aerial view we included just really to give you a sense of the scope of this project. Although obviously this is not the way you experience it the experience will be much more like this. And with that, I'll take any questions you have.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. White. Any questions from the board?
I have a couple of questions. What was the rationale behind the patterning of the vertical louvers that are running down the roof?
Well, it's a barcode off the bag of Skittles. No, I'm kidding. It was just sort of something that we came to rhythmically. You know, we didn't want something that was a strict repeating pattern for fear that it would become monotonous.
I think you kind of alluded to that too, and the aluminum clad kind of wood look panels, those are, in your understanding, kind of soften the experience that's there, and then as it's brought up and kind of frames the openings, the larger openings that are there.
Yeah, and with that ceiling being significantly above that head, we weren't really worried about using that product. I mean, normally if this thing were within reach, we would be very concerned about using any sort of synthetic alternative to wood, but we also do have to consider the maintenance that USC would have to think of. They actually use real.
I had one other question. Just, I don't know this necessarily, but the turn that's happening at the terminus. Yes. Instead of continuing the line down, like what was the rationale behind having it kind of turn back? And
It's where it has to plug in.
Yeah.
To this building, there's a natural corridor right there. If we came straight across, we would end up bypassing the face of this building, somehow having to dig into clinical space or research space, cut through it. It's quite a trick to do this because when you link buildings together on MUSC's campus, you're linking program functions that don't necessarily want to be next to each other. But so that's why it was really important to make sure that wherever we connect, we're connecting into corridors, lobbies, hallways. That's right.
Yeah, Mr. Metters?
Jay, tie into art.
Mhm.
And it's beautiful, the way that it transitions in there. And then the rest of it is its own thing. Was there any conversation about taking each one of the other primary buildings and taking the area of the walk and tying it into that and just having open space where the green space is in between, so you can see through it and not have as much congestion within the walkway itself?
Like to not actually enclose.
No, enclose it for sure, but you know, you like just the seamless transition into art. I mean, it's wonderful, but the rest of it's just the walkway.
Right.
And then from the walkway, you go into the buildings. Was there thought given to, at each one of those other main buildings, we're gonna better tie into that?
Yes, and that actually will come up, wrong direction. As we develop this, we'll need to think about.
Because when you're tying to art, it's awesome.
Find a better view here. We still need to think about the actual connections that are behind here.
Yeah.
Because there's about 20 feet between the bridge and each of the buildings it connects to. And the expression of that linkage needs to be deliberate. We need to really think it through, but it's something that we're sort of holding for the next phase of design evolution. But it needs to have an expression that makes it seem as natural as it does at Ashford River Tower.
And I want to make sure that what I'm saying is clear. You know, if I'm looking down that big long, and that is the connector. And when it went in front of one of the buildings, was there consideration given to that section in front of that building?
To reflect the architecture.
Reflect the architecture of that building, and then what's in between those is a reflection of open space, green space, still enclosed.
Yeah. Oh, I see what you're saying. We did study a lot of versions of that, but frankly, even within the institution, everybody's got their sort of, beauty contest ranking of all these buildings, and we did have some sketches many years ago, and we just couldn't really bring ourselves to replicate thermal gazes. I'm sorry. But we also feel like, we deal with this sometimes with very block-long projects in Charleston. There's two ways to do it. You either express that length and just embrace it, a la cigar factory, which is a block on the building, or you try to break it up and hyphenate it and try to give it a multitude of expressions to give it certain rhythm. We took the approach of just having one architectural language across the whole thing and then using the patterning, louvers, and fenestration to give it a rhythm that we felt very natural.
Great question, thank you. Anybody else on the board? Any other questions from the board? Thank you, Mr. White. Any public comment?
Thank you, Tilly Historic Charleston Foundation. HCF recognizes the unique context of this structure within the medical district. And we understand the connections between medical facilities, benefit patients with mobility challenges, healthcare providers responding to urgent needs, and the movement of medical equipment. For those unique and important reasons, HCF is not opposed to the construction of the pedestrian bridge in principle. However, we believe the proposed 25-foot bridge height is unnecessarily tall compared with examples of pedestrian connector bridges in other medical districts. Most medical bridges of this nature typically provide approximately 9 to 10 feet of interior height, and even with structural and mechanical systems included, total exterior heights rarely exceed 14 to 16 feet. Unless this height represents a clearance need, a lower, more context-appropriate height would better balance medical needs with the Charleston's historic urban character. Thank you for your attention.
Great, thank you so much. Any other public comment? All right, we will move into city staff comments and recommendations.
So I'm gonna start by just putting some stuff on the public record about the overlay zone, because this is the first time this has become a project in the new overlay zone is coming from the BAR, and primarily because while it was ratified on October 14th of 2025, it does not appear in Muni code. So for the public record, I wanted to make sure that it was out there. The board received what was approved on October 14th, so they have it. In terms of new construction and BAR review, it changes nothing. But yet I wanted to make sure it was all on the record for people at home who don't have access, since it's not on Muni code. There are some zoning things that change, but it's always our job to make sure they're meeting zoning requirements before it's brought to you all, and they are. So we're good to go in terms of the new overlay in this project as it's currently proposed and submitted. As demonstrated in the submittal, this elevated walkway is a response to real flooding issues that occur on a regular basis in this area. And as noted by the applicant, that it primarily runs down Dowdy Street, finishing on President and connecting to 4 buildings directly. These buildings were built at distinct times and with assorted architectural expressions and differing exterior and interior floor heights. Given the varied context, staff support the proposal having a consistent height, mass, and architectural expression so that this addition to the built environment has its own authentic response as a contemporary piece of infrastructure. Staff understand that the height, scale, and mass are predicated on pragmatic and utilitarian necessities related to, among other things, connecting to buildings with disparate floor heights, accommodating mechanical infrastructure, both across the site as well as within the connector itself, concrete structure depth, as well as clearance over the public right-of-way. To that end, staff support the height, scale, and mass of the project. Staff appreciate how the structure becomes a porch or loggia as it engages buildings in varying conditions. And staff also support the material palette in general, as well as the rhythmic approach to the placement of the aluminum louvers, providing both visual interest and sun shading over the curtain wall system. Staff conditions bring sample materials to the preliminary review, and staff recommendation is for conceptual approval with board and staff comments and conditions.
Great, thank you so much. Mr. White, any response to?
No, thank you for ACS comments and thank you for staff's comments and analysis.
Great, thank you so much. All right, we'll move into board discussion. Somebody want to start us out? Mr. Meadows, you got the floor.
Sure. So height, scale, and mass, no problem. I think it's right on. The multi-use of the structure for steam, electrical, water, I mean, that's good plan. I believe the tie to the Ashley River Tower is just exceptional. I mean, the way that you're doing demolition and tie it back in. From President Street, the File Engineering Building up to Courtney. The Sky Bridge basically looks the same. I mean, it's the Sky Bridge as you were saying. However, the tie-in at the Ashley River Tower, I'm saying this again, is seamless or blended. And as you move away from the Ashley River Tower, in between buildings, what if that were used as an opportunity to express the areas in between the buildings? So I know there are varying levels of success with the existing architecture. And I get that, and I'm not trying to suggest that we really pull details, but maybe some type of material palette or something in front of each one of those buildings ties into the tower, but in between it ties into blue skies that you can see through it, or the clouds. And believe me, I understand that I don't know, I can't even possibly fathom the challenges that you're faced with this design, but these are just my thoughts. I think the height, scale, and mass is no problem. I think that the general architectural direction, while I get it, there was a way to break our way up, similar to the way buildings are broken up, with something in between the buildings. Something I'd like to just see thoughts on that.
Okay, thank you so much. Anybody else have any comments or discussion?
I'll share. I think the applicant knows how I typically feel about contemporary architecture. However, the new ordinance allows for a structure like this to be built, what I'll call the Medical University District, or MUD, if that works for you. But this is just a fine piece of contemporary architecture that, to Mr. Metter's point, is excellently executed at the Ashley River Tower, but also serves as a beautiful through line for the rest of campus that will serve as the basis for the future of the architecture of what the medical university will provide. I don't see it as an I see it as a standalone. It stands on itself architecturally and what it can and will do for the medical university. The screening along the way, the arithmetic rhythm, if you will, across it ties in well and is visually interesting for the pedestrian. It engages the pedestrian experience along Dowdy Street and the Greenway. And it does have an architectural element of the two anchor buildings at both termini, whatever that may be. But it's just really impressive. And when it comes to height, scale, mass, it all fits in with a campus that has significant height and massing. Additionally, the 18 feet, I think that you said, off the ground, that is a matter of resiliency more than anything else in a district that is constantly flooding. So programmatically, that makes sense as well. But job very well done.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Anybody else with any other comments?
Ambitious project, very much standalone, which is great. I tend to sometimes exaggerate comparing to the other parts of the world, and I think something like that you can see in Tokyo, Dubai, Rotterdam. Well executed, rhythm is wonderful materials. Height, mass, scale, you have to drive up through, so you need to elevate as high. The only question I have, I guess, is this is strictly pedestrian, and how much traffic you will get there. So you have those nodes where you come to the building. Would they be projected and used for something else? Kind of like office stand, you know, the flowers, memorial, things like that. So to engage the work, it could be really interesting. Other than that, and obviously the green spaces were want to look at, but again, this is a unique project for Charleston, and I think also the examples which were showing very much suburban to what you have designed. It's not typical, not expected, so that's kind of my.
Great, thank you so much. Anybody else?
I have a couple of comments. I mean, I would like to, I guess, reiterate some of the comments that the board has said here, that this connector, as the applicant presented, is an architectural element. It's also a utility to the building, and it's also an urban design feature. And being able to integrate all three of those into an element that also has its own language and speaks to its own place with a refined level of detail, I think is quite successful in this project. It is, to Mr. Metter's point, as you've been talking about, as it goes down, tying together a series of different buildings that all have their own material expression, architectural expression, and plugging in and even looking at the kind of window, as I was calling it, as I looked at it, as it comes across, you know, the building plugs right into the face. So there is an ability to actually kind of see that architecture through that space, you know, and plugging into it, but with its own language, allowing other elements to be read through it, I think was actually a rather successful element. I think even looking at your precedent images, what you've designed is better than every one of these precedent images that I was looking at, because some of them are just strictly a glass wall as it wraps around with no level of detail. It's there. So while it's a tall element, and I know it has some of those features, it also has a series of elements that are kind of breaking down that mass, and at a conceptual level, I find that really successful. I also think the height, scale, and mass is good. You know, I think it's something, but I did find myself wondering a lot about the engagement of the buildings. And I think, particular, and you addressed it in your speech, Mr. White, whenever you were going through that, the entry conditions at the backside are actually where people will begin to engage and come up into this building. And as beautiful as the facade is, those are going to be elements that will really help define the critical success of this project as it ties into all these different structures. And so I would like to see that, and I think it's a critical design feature as it goes forward. I'm a little hesitant of the wood panels. I know that you'll be addressing those, especially as they relate to kind of the signature window feature. I understand underneath the structure when it's 18 feet tall, but if you're standing in that window looking out, it'll be framing right where you're looking, and it's at two monumental areas. So I understand you'll have the skill to be able to develop those. And then I think the only other critical elements that I looked is where the towers land are kind of a different language than the piers. And I wonder if, as this project develops and as these exterior integration strategies are kind of brought together, are those an element that need to be simplified or refined to kind of match some of the other languages that are there so that they can be as beautiful as the ribbon is as it goes down. And so I think those were kind of the elements that I was seeing as it was there, but in terms of height, scale, mass, and architectural direction, I'm fully on board with what's being presented here.
Right.
One more. I think, you know, connections to the existing buildings needs to be part of the work rather than mimicking anything on these buildings, particularly because we're trying to mask them and not to see it as much. But so that's kind of my point of view.
So let me just ask this, Jay. How does it work, Jay, with the connections going from the skywalk back to the buildings? There's such an important part of this. We don't know what that's going to be right now. That's not a separate project to Luda's project. It's going to be tied into it. So we give this conceptual approval right now, which we will. But where does that come into play? Just that preliminary?
Yeah, preliminary.
It's
And-
part of the architectural directions.
But I mean, we don't know about that architectural direction right now, is my point. I'm
Just the connections you're talking about?
yeah, but the connections are pretty substantial and they're going to be critical for function, but also aesthetics
Sure.
and very visible. So it was really just a question.
Yeah,
I think we take that up at the next.
Yeah.
At preliminary.
that could be handled preliminary, and obviously if you're not happy with those connections, then they would resubmit for a new preliminary.
Good with that? Yeah. Okay. All right, cool.
Unless there's other further discussion, I'll be happy to entertain a motion. Go ahead,
Um,
Ms. Upchurch.
Conceptual approval with board and staff comments.
And conditions, okay. So there's a motion for conceptual approval with board and staff comments and conditions. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Mr. Brown? Who said that? Or Mr.
Oh, that was, I'm sorry, me.
Sorry, I wasn't looking. All right, thank you. All right,
But he has a new name.
right, I mean, no, I wouldn't, I heard it, and I should have known, all right. Mr. Trantham, how do you vote?
Yay in favor.
Mr. Brown,
Yay in favor.
Mr. Metters,
Yeah,
Ms. Sobchak,
Yay in favor.
and I'm also yay in favor. Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. White.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
Item number 3 is withdrawn by the applicant, so that takes us to item number 4, which is 560 King Street.
560 King Street is a not rated building circa 2015. Excuse me, in the Olden Historic District, requesting approval for an illuminated 614 square foot facade sign. Lawrence is going to show us the location, but also what you can see from the public right of way of the building, because the building is actually kind of tucked behind. And then we're going to be ready for the applicant presentation.
Hi, my name is Joseph Westbrook. I'm from Insignia Rising Sign Company. We're an electrical sign contractor. With me today is Barry, the construction manager, project manager, and Todd with the ownership group, Highland Properties. And I want to present to you this drawing. This is really a preliminary drawing to get your feel and your feedback for what is aesthetically pleasing for you and for the branding of this hotel. And so this was submitted. I want to give you a little history. Barry and John Curtis Design, a very prominent designer of signage, created this in collaboration with Lawrence in interpreting the code, interpreting the allowances. And so together from October, they went back and forth with different sizes and what would look good and illumination. Originally, they wanted to do a spot lit thing, but through those discussions, it was determined that a halo lit light would be much better and softer and kind of a warm light that would really embrace it. One of the big reasons why this sign is going a long way is this sign, this building is set back 207 feet from King Street. And so being that it's set back so far, there's only a window of opportunity to view this place. So they really want to direct traffic there. Otherwise you pass it like that. So the Lowline Hotel will be the brand of this hotel. And there's a courtyard area that there's a public parking on the right. And so the purpose of this is to, number one, direct people there. And number two, to let them know how to get, where it's at, how to get there, and this, because it's kind of buried back there. Now it is a 9-story building. And so this drawing here is 9 feet wide, 68 feet, 3 inches tall. With the only part illuminated is the small halo around the letters. The rest of the sign is non-illuminated. So that's the sign we're preparing, and we'd love your feedback.
Okay, thank you so much. Any questions at this time from the board?
Just one clarifying question. This is a 70-foot sign roughly?
Well,
On the
this
side.
presentation was presented back in December 29th. It was originally set to be on the January docket. Since then, through discussion, we've already prepared something a little smaller, so we expect that this would be accepted.
Correct me if I'm
But
wrong.
at this point, it's 68 feet.
What's presented, okay, this is roughly
This
70
here is
feet.
68
Thank you.
feet, 3
That's-
inches tall.
Perfect, thank you. Yep.
Any other questions from the board at this time?
Is the illumination able to be dimmed?
Yes, we talked a lot about color, kelvins from a white to a kind of a yellowish warm white. We had some discussion between 2700 K up to 4000 K. Originally, when it was kind of shown, it looked really white in a email and in a printed piece of paper. But our real intent is to have more of a warm white that has a yellow feel to it, so it's softer. As a matter of fact, these drawings don't show it, but new drawings would. The floors right there have windows, and so when the windows are lit up, the sign is similar in temperature and feel, but even softer than what you're seeing through the windows. Yeah. But to answer your question shortly, yes, it can be dimmed.
I guess we need the mock-ups of the signage now.
I guess I also have a quick question for you, and I don't know if it's one, to your, understanding, given the size and scale of this sign, obviously it's very large. How do you see it being kind of subordinate to the architecture rather than kind of like a large billboard, or is that the intention for it?
Well, like the college has this 20-something feet tall LED message board, and this is nothing like that. And, I've walked up and down these streets at day and night, and this sign will be very subtle, but effective because it just lights it up. And so I don't think it's even close to looking what a billboard would look like. It's really part of the architecture of the building. It fits perfectly on that column, which is an elevator bay. And being that it's only a halo lit soft lighting, you're only talking about an inch of lighting around it. It's a small, warm yellow light that really makes the letters appear to be black. In reality, they'll be painted a little gold outline with some blue, but at night they'll view kind of black. There's another, let me see. So there, see how it's real white in this picture?
If the letters and the rendering that's provided are glowing white as well as the halo that's around it. So your intention is that it would be different than that?
So again, we want to get into that December 29th submittal date. And so these drawings don't exactly reflect the way it's going to be, but we really want to get your feedback so that we can have directions, so that we don't go back and forth. We'd like to hone it into what you would approve, what you would be supportive of aesthetically. And from our perspective, this doesn't effectively show how it's going to light up. So but we're unable to submit. I brought some with me. However, I understand we're not able to distribute those unless.
Yeah, we can only view what's been submitted thus far.
Understood.
Those are my only two questions. Thank you for taking the time. to
Yeah.
answer.
Any other questions from the board before we move on?
No, sir.
All right, thank you so much. Any public comment on this? All right. City staff comments and recommendations, please.
And sort of like the previous project, the first page is just outlining which part of the ordinance is applicable here, as well as our policies, but I won't include them all, but it's just getting on the public record what is applicable to these particular requests. The next slide, staff support the overall graphic design of the sign, as the colors and typography are professional, lack extraneous information, and are compatible with the building's architecture. However, staff do not find the sign scale, method of illumination, or the lack of clarity regarding its brightness to be approvable. As proposed, the facade sign is over 600 square feet. Although this technically complies with the zoning ordinance, which is set at 10%, the BAR retains the discretion to reduce the sign if it is determined to be inappropriate in scale or design related to the building and its immediate surroundings. Lawrence, can you actually go back to the photograph, the orienting photograph? Instead of just having the verbal comments all the way back to, one more. For us, it relies on technically, The size of that almost 70-foot sign is 10% of the entire facade. You don't actually see the entire facade from the street. This is what you see from the street. So for us, that's the issue, is that while technically they meet the 10% of the facade, the viewable part of the facade is much, much narrow. And that's why staff could approve this at staff. And Lawrence, let's forward till we get to the staff comments that start with respect to illumination. There we go. With respect to illumination, the applicant proposes individual illuminated channel letters. Staff recommend an alternative illumination method such as halo lit letters, which would result in less visually prominent sign, particularly at this scale. Staff also requests clarification on the proposed Kelvin temperature and lumen levels, which were not provided. While the sign must remain legible, staff find that the overall size and illumination method of the sign should be reduced and refined to better relate to the visible portion of the facade and to be more compatible with the context of King Street. Staff condition: if the overall design of the sign is approvable by the board, but the size and illumination are not, staff requests that the board provide a general comment on size or general lighting specifications that they feel would be acceptable with final details and review to staff. So in other words, we are happy to do this at staff if the board sort of goes on the record of what they would want to see happen to the sign instead of having to come back to the board. But we recommend denial of the facade sign as it's proposed in this submittal.
Right, thank you, BD. All right, any response from the applicant?
Yes, so first of all, thank you for that very much. That's the exact feedback we're looking for, is what size is acceptable. Regarding the comment of what's visible from the street, that's one of the reasons why of the size, because it's smaller in size. There's no other way you would know that that building is there. So plus a smaller sign kind of dwarfs on there, and we've done some drawings that show smaller and you can't really read it or see it. We don't have the ability to look at that today, but maybe on the staff level we could, and we can go back and forth on that. And I do like that you commented on the halo portion of the lighting, because we've pretty much already addressed those issues on our call with Brad and with Lawrence of a warmer lighting, so I appreciate that. And then I guess that's really the only things is those.
Great, thank you so much. All right, we'll move into the board discussion.
Before we start board
Yeah.
discussion, I have a question for staff, just to, I know this obviously it's the Low Line Hotel. It actually fronts onto the Low Line. I think the facades that are being addressed are Spring and King Street. As we look and review this and the Low Line gets created or signage wants to get done, I mean, it seems like an expression of a signage towards the Low Line might also be something. Would this in its version, because it seems about the maximum size, or its placement kind of affect any placement of future signage on the Low Line when that gets finished, or is that not
Well,
something
if
we?
there are, what you're approving is what's in front of
Yeah,
you.
mhm.
When applicants request additional signage, because maybe contextual conditions have changed, or who is leasing the building, or any things like that, then they come back and we take it in context of what sign already exists.
Okay,
So right now, you can only consider this particular sign in moment.
okay.
And I have a follow-up question. I'm sorry, because this is the way that it's presented here is that it would be at Spring and King, when in actuality, it's not. It's down the alleyway off of King Street
Yes.
in the back cul-de-sac at the hotel. And correct me if I'm wrong, I'm assuming this is a rebrand of the Hyatt House and the Hyatt Place. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That already currently has signage out on King Street.
Right.
With those branding elements.
Yes, but
Okay.
this is what they are asking
Right.
for as they take
Okay.
ownership of this building.
Okay.
So that's what is to be considered.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just gotta get my context.
Yeah, I
down.
get it.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, just trying to understand
Yeah.
what I'm doing.
Future potential, we only
Yeah,
deal with the
that's fine.
existing
Okay.
comments. Yeah.
Going to a sign. I think like that we have in the city, and I think nothing like that we should have English. I'm blind, but I will see the smaller sign driving there on that alley. So it just doesn't make sense regardless. Does it meet or doesn't meet 10% of whole facade, partial facade? I just don't think it's appropriate size-wise. Illumination is different issue to talk about, but I'm totally against this size right now.
Yeah, I mean, the size to me is a concern for sure. You know, I haven't seen any precedent studies of that around here, but I can't think of it. And so I think we do have to take the overall context of the city into consideration. So I do think it needs to be smaller. I agree with the staff's comments about the halo lit. And we need to know really what that those lumens are and how bright it would be. And, you know, something that's just lighting up through the night's not something that I'm gonna be in favor of, but I think it can be done appropriately. But we'll need, you know, some better direction on that for sure.
Motion?
Yeah, any other, I mean, you know, they're looking for some feedback on, you know, and what we would have. I think it's something they need to study and bring back before us.
That's right.
But if you do have some comments, I think they would appreciate hearing from the board, their other comments.
I mean, more than anything for me, it's going to be the scaling of the project, and I get that it's so far set back from the pedestrian right of way, but something that massive is just not found in town that I can think of. So it will be an interesting challenge, but as it's currently presented, I don't think it's acceptable.
I would reinforce that I'd probably say I do support staff's comment that says you support the overall graphic design of the sign as the colors and typography. Like, to me, I think the design of the sign is not an issue to me. It's the illumination and the size. And I'm struggling, and I know y'all are looking for us to say, is there a size that's appropriate? I think that, I mean, I don't know that I can give a size that's appropriate. I think that we need to look and what are they going to bring to us? I don't want to say 3 stories and then put it there and then it's at the wrong 3 stories or something. I think that contextually matching elements that are around here, I think it can be done at a large size and still be visible, but I don't know that I can give you a specific size as to.
Denial is
Yeah.
start over, pretty much. That's it. And if we are looking for several different approaches, I don't know, it's up to the applicant to do it.
I'll take a motion then.
So. We'll make a motion for denial of the facade sign as proposed, as I find it to be inappropriate in scale and design, related to the building and its immediate surroundings.
Right, so there's a denial, there is a motion for denial as submitted.
That's proposed.
Is that correct, Mr. Miller?
Yes, but I mean, I just want to read from staff comments, because I do find it inappropriate in scale, design, related to the building and its immediate surroundings.
Okay. Is there a second?
Can I ask a question of
Sure.
that? Whenever you say design, is that the actual graphics of the sign, or is there a little more of just?
I'm not a graphics person, and so when I look at that, I don't know the answer to that. I'm looking at it from an overall perspective, and
Yeah, I
I'm
would,
happy if you want to make a modification.
Yeah,
Actually,
can I ask, I was gonna ask you a question, could it just say inappropriate scale instead of,
scale and elimination.
yeah, and then the second thing was, are we gonna deal with illumination in it as well?
Well, so somebody else made the motion. Yeah.
Well, just procedurally, we do have a motion on the floor. I have not heard a second. We are in discussion of that motion. So not having a second, I will open the floor back up to another potential motion. I would like to comment too with you, Mr. Trantham, in terms of the actual, call it the graphics, that portion of the design that I think staff has found to be appropriate. I am okay with it in terms of the typing of the lettering types and the simplicity of the sign, that sort of stuff. I think the issues really, for me at least, are the size and then further clarification and details on the illumination portion of it.
The stylistic elements, that you like.
So,
Yeah, I don't know what that adjective covers. Yes,
Yeah.
I mean, we've said graphic, stylistic, the way, yeah,
Typography.
yeah, the issues are illumination.
yeah,
and
but
size.
if we just mention per staff comments and conditions, that will cover. Because it's all that, right?
I would say staff comments, but not conditions, because staff conditions were
Okay,
about bringing it back to staff, but if you're
Right.
wanting it to come back to the board, then you just include denial with board and staff comments. So then it's all there and we'll put it in the meeting minutes. Yeah.
Does anyone want to make that motion?
I'll go for that. A motion to deny the facade sign as proposed with board and staff comments.
All right, so the motion on the floor by Mr. Brown is a denial as proposed with board and staff comments. Is there a second on?
I would second that.
Okay, seconded by Mr. Trantham. Mr. Trantham, how do you vote?
Yay in favor.
Mr. Brown, how do you vote?
Yay in favor.
Mr. Mothers?
Yeah, but
So Chuck,
Yeah, in favor.
I'm also yay in favor. The motion passes, which is a denial as proposed with board and staff comments.
Do we get to,